We are recording. Hi there, Vicky. Thank you so much for joining us and being our first ever contributor to our UKTGA membership spotlight series of videos. Thank you very much for giving us your time today. Really interested to know about your role as social impact manager at Unite Students and how this relates to community.
Thanks, Poppy. And yeah, really nice to be on. Thanks for the ask. So as you've mentioned, I work at Unite Students. So Unite is the largest owner, manager and developer of purpose-built student accommodation in the UK. So we currently host about 74,000 young people, which is quite a vast number. And we are set up in about 27 different cities and towns across the UK. And that's sort of 100 plus properties that we manage and look after. And as you mentioned, my role is social impact manager. And as part of that, I sort of look at creating social sustainable work that has a really positive impact in the communities that we operate. As well as that sort of aspect, we also look after the charity and fundraising aspects of the business. And within that, we kind of look to develop the capabilities of our ops teams. So actually helping them be able to support the communities that they operate in by understanding their needs and the needs of the students and how they can actually bring that together to maximise impact. And we also then look at sort of managing national charity partnerships and actually being really strategic about who we partner with. So actually making sure we can support the charity, but also for us at the end of the day, we are a business. So actually making sure that does make good strategic business sense and that relationship can be really mutually beneficial.
Thank you very much. For those of you watching, it's raining pretty heavily in Manchester, so I'm trying to mute myself so we're not distracted by the weather going on outside. Vicky, you have experience of working all over the world, particularly in Australia. And myself and our members would be really interested to know how your global experience of working in an education setting in a different country has really equipped you with skills and expertise to deliver your role on behalf of Unite.
So once upon a time, I was a teacher. And so I've always worked with young people. And so just in fact that I myself qualified from university in one way or another. And I spent 5 years in total in Sydney in New South Wales and was lucky enough to teach within quite an affluent and very well resourced independent school in the middle of Sydney. And within that school, there was actually a school that was created for Indigenous Australians. And actually I spent most of my kind of time teaching in that school within that school itself. So a school within a school, if you will. And it was full scholarships for all those young people that attended. And it was essentially created due to the kind of injustice and imbalance of the education system in Australia currently. So the disparity between non-Indigenous Australians and what they're achieving compared to Indigenous Australians in the education front is there's quite a disparity there, and hence this kind of school was born. And it's a really special place to work and be involved in. And it's a school that teaches in partnership with families and communities. So there's a real focus on actually empowering parents and carers to actually get really involved in the education of their child or young person. And as part of that, that ranged from the school would organise bus pickups to come and take those young people to school. So you were removing sort of additional needs or worries for parents. All the way through to actually teaching the language of Wiradjuri. So actually this was taught then to the Indigenous Australians within the smaller school. But then we actually rolled out lessons. We brought community workers in who could actually teach this to non-Indigenous Australians. And it was all part of creating that wider community and just pulling away some of those barriers and actually helping sort of all those young people to actually interact on a different level and have a better understanding of kind of where their journeys are and actually look at integrating that education experience from such a young age. And then that went all the way through to, you know, when they're sort of looking at leaving school. So yeah, as I mentioned, sort of funded by both government, but also lots of corporate sponsorships. And as part of that, they would invite volunteers to come in every single day. So I know that that's nothing new for schools to say, yeah, you know, come in and do some reading. But this was actually part of a wider reading program. So we had sort of real, you know, white collar corporate and bankers from sort of, you know, mums and carers actually coming in and spending time reading with these young people. So they were exposed to just so many different opportunities and experiences, just people, walks of life that you know, that just wouldn't have happened otherwise in that setting that was created. So I think that's something that's always stayed with me, that, you know, actually we can always do more in terms of it's not enough just to have a one-off experience maybe once a term when we're looking at education. It's actually how you make that part of the everyday and the everyday experience for those young people, and just everyone needs to work towards removing barriers.
That sounds like such a rewarding experience that you had, and certainly in terms of always doing more, the work, the campaigns and the research that's delivered by Unite just about the student experience is, I think, really, really fascinating. And that's something which is shared with the UKTGA. We've got your colleague Tatiana, who's from Unite, sits on our steering group. That's really interesting. Thank you, Vicky. I'm also really interested to know how that experience, the kind of the skills that you developed when you're working over in Australia, how you've learned from that experience, and that's helped you shape your role since you've been back in the UK.
Yeah, and again, it's all about that sort of community piece, and actually, you know, what it means to be involved in the community, but also appreciating that every single community is different. And I think that's what's really, really key and really important. So for us at Unite, what we've recently launched is what we call Green Impact Community Projects. And we've done this in partnership with the NUS. So we're actually looking at sort of each of our cities identifying something that they want to improve, something like almost a business need. And again, I think at Unite, we don't shy away from the fact that we are a business. Yeah, you know, we're not a not-for-profit, we're not a charity, we're a business. But yeah, that doesn't mean we're not responsible and we do the right thing. So again, we look to say, right, what do we need to do to improve a wider business objective in those areas? And then we look at the community. Okay, what's going on in the local community that we are present and we are a huge part of, that maybe needs our support. And then it's kind of, that's a toolkit then that drives that social impact change. So it's really listening and identifying the needs that what our students want, what the community wants. And then from that, and that's my sort of role, is actually coming in and advising and helping to shape what that piece of work should be. So what should that project be that's going to serve the needs of everybody involved? And actually we can really sort of measure and maintain that impact moving forward. So that's we kind of launched, you know, COVID happened. So we had launched previously, and that all sort of got paused. But we did have a really successful pilot with this in Birmingham. So we just developed our first property in the Selly Oak area, which is an area that's, you know, huge student population, and not the best relationship between local residents and students presently. And I think it's just because there's so many students, and maybe they're living sort of in properties that aren't maintained as well as they could be. So there's been some antisocial problems. So Unite kind of, you know, we've come in there and we've acknowledged, okay, we need to help out these local residents. They're having a tough time, but also we need to support students, because I think there's also a bit of a negative reputation for students, where actually Gen Z, you know, this generation are hugely focused on sustainability. They have a social conscience. They're very different from that stereotype of the students in the pub all day. You know, we're worlds away from that, but I think that's part of our role. We need to be educating people that this is a new generation of student that, you know, that does care and wants to get involved. So we're looking at creating that mix to bring those students, working with local residents, we've got the Canal and Rivers Trust involved, working with the University of Birmingham, actually all coming together and like cleaning the area and making the canal safer. So again, and that was our business priority. We wanted this to be safe for our students. Like I said, we don't shy away from that. But by us making that cleaner and safer for students, it's also safer for residents. We are improving our reputation because we're out, we're being seen, we're litter picking, we're dredging the canal. And our employees are enjoying doing that as well. It's really good for morale. So there's lots of wins for us as a business, but actually we're serving the need of a community. So that's a really, to me, that's one of our sort of best examples of how we've done that really well. So now we're kind of going into the end of November where we'll be actually launching this across all our different cities. And again, it will be bespoke to what that need is. So again, it's all about how do we communicate properly? How do we listen to the needs? And then how do we shape that so it's strategic and it delivers?
That's fantastic. And I think it's interesting that it's Unite staff with volunteers and students are going out there and being really visible in the community. And being based in Manchester, there is sometimes the perception that students are one big homogenous glob. Certain people may have a certain perception of them, but actually within the student community, there's so many layers of other communities as well. So, and I'm very pleased that you mentioned Birmingham, because that's where we're going to be having our November 2022 conference, which obviously we had to reconsider because of COVID. So we would love to invite you along to that. And we're working with Claire Bent from Birmingham University.
Yeah, lovely.
That's fantastic. Thank you, Vicky. And in your time that you've been at Unite, what would you, if you had to tell me one of your highlights or something that you're particularly proud of, it can be anything, campaign that you delivered, something that you worked on, absolutely anything. I think our members would be really pleased to know about that.
Yeah, I guess I'll kind of revert back to our national partnerships. So we actually partner with the British Heart Foundation, and we have done sort of since 2014. But actually quite recently, we just kind of hit the £1 million mark in donations to the charity, which is a huge amount of money. But for me, what is so special about it is it's such a mutually beneficial partnership. We haven't given this, huge amount of money to them. What we've done is establish donation stations in all our properties, and we encourage students to donate unwanted clothing rather than chucking it out. So it's a win-win, because those donations then are going on to the BHF. They're being sold in the local community, so it's a nice opportunity for people that are living there to have access to some really nice goodies. That's raising money that's all going back into funding medical research, and that's exactly what that money is going into, as well as we're not having to chuck loads of stuff into landfill. So for us, that's so strategic that BHF are getting lots of donations, therefore lots of money into research, and we aren't having to pay lots of money for people to come and take things into landfill, and we're not polluting as much. We're able to to really encourage sustainable behaviour changes with our students. So yeah, it was a great moment that when we just sort of ticked over the £1 million mark, and I think that was from 2017 that we'd sort of started those tallies. So not a huge period of time, to achieve something that we were quite proud of, certainly as a business.
That's absolutely great. We work with the British Heart Foundation closely in Manchester as well. And I always think it's interesting when they equate the amount of donations and they put it in really kind of understandable format. So this is the equivalent of 50 elephants that have been donated this week. They get some really good donations as well, like those Chanel handbags and stuff like that. So I think was it the Give It Don't Bin It campaign or Pack for Good?
It started as Pack for Good, and then we've kind of evolved that to be kind of an all year round. We're just kind of promoting that those donations are made by students as and when. But yeah, Pack for Good is how that kicked off for us. Fantastic.
So Vicky, final question from me. How do you think, hopefully as we come out of COVID, fingers crossed, how do you think that the needs and the wants and the support that's required from our students is going to look over the next kind of 6 months, year, so short, medium and long term? If you could give us your thoughts around that, I think that would be very interesting.
Yeah, I think probably this is the holy grail. I think this generation of students have been through so much, nothing like sort of has ever been experienced, if you will. And so they're going through university now where they haven't been able to socialize. They probably haven't been able to do a lot of the first things they would do when they're at home, and now they're kind of, everything's been on pause and now they're coming away for the first time. So I think for us as a business, we're quite aware that there's maybe less experience within those young people. So from a health and safety point of view, we want to make sure that we're really clear on kind of well-being and what support we can give and what advice and signposting we can give. And I think that's just a sort of very obvious point, that it's always a leap, that transition period, coming to move away from home for the first time, but even more so off the back of this pandemic and that isolation that everyone's gone through. I think in terms of what communities need moving forward, I think it's going to be so unique because every community is so different, and within that, every student is so different. So for us, my call to action almost for our ops teams is listen. It's start to embed yourself in those community groups, start to have conversations and actually hear what the need is. And that will evolve. I think that's what's going to be key as well. It will keep changing, until we get back to a more sort of a period of normality, where things are kind of more predictable and set in stone. So I think what we're looking to do is listen, make sure we're in a position where people know that we're there, we're willing to make sort of good positive impact, and again, supporting that well-being piece of our students. And if we can tie that in, and just to help create that more sort of integrated community, rather than we're already a community, we exist over here, actually breaking down those barriers and having everybody sort of work together. But again, it's just all about listening and actually not having this will work for, like I say, the 27 cities and towns that we're in. Of course it won't. So it's actually just being able to bespoke that, but still having the strategy and the direction behind what we're doing, and being able to sort of step back from that and looking at the impact and make sure we can measure what we're doing and support the needs that are there.
Vicky, thank you. I think you've given us some great insight today, and your time has been really, really appreciated. And we'd really like to welcome you to speak and participate at future events that we have, maybe some virtual roundtable discussions. I think it sounds like you're doing some great work for Unite. So would just like to say thank you very much again on behalf of the UKTGA community, and we look forward to working with you in the future. Thanks very much.
Thanks, Poppy. Pleasure to be here.